Coach Nick here, and welcome to another edition of B-Ball Breakdown. We've got Ben Heisler back with us to talk a little bit about the free agency craziness that's going on today. So Ben, take it away. Let us know what's happening.
The dominoes are falling, Coach. It's exciting times in NBA free agency world. So let's start with Carmelo Anthony. It's looking like the extra $30 million from Phil Jackson, the Zen-Mancer, maybe convinced him to stay. Frank Iasola of the New York Daily News reported that bearing like a last-minute change of heart, that Carmelo's going to go ahead and re-sign in New York. But Ramona Shelburne of ESPN reporting that Carmelo's agent Leon Rose saying Carmelo hasn't made a decision yet. Let's start with question number one. You and I both had this conversation on this channel about the likelihood that Melo comes back to New York. I know that Leon Rose isn't declaring anything yet, but I'm pretty certain at least, that Carmelo is going back to New York. So first of all, how do you feel about him returning to New York, and do you think that was the right move for him?
It felt that way the whole time to me. I mean, we do know that the Bulls are a great fit for him, and nowhere else really does fit that way, but it's a lot of money on the table. It's not really fair to criticize the guy for taking that kind of security, and I feel like he was getting it from all ends of the universe, yelling at him about, oh, you don't want to win if you want to take the money. But the bottom line is, this is the business. There's no reason not to trust in Phil Jackson and Derek Fisher, and they brought in Calderon, who's great in the triangle, or will be. So, I think that there's something there. It's only a question of when does he start to decline? Is it this year? Is it next year? If he can continue to have a few more years of his prime, then it's a great decision to stay in New York.
And that's the problem, is because you're only talking about maybe a couple more years of his prime, but he's going to be set to be making an absorbent amount of money. So I guess when you're looking at the roster, if you're Carmelo and you're trying to win in your prime and you need to win right now, can the Knicks necessarily do that?
Not really. They have a couple of bad contracts still on the books for at least through next year. So that's the big issue, and, that's the challenge. Masai Ujiri has been able to move some god-awful contracts. Yeah. So, you have to look at now it's time for the general manager and the president to actually do their job and try and fix the mess. And that's a tall order, but it's been done in the past, and so I would expect that they're going to try and do something to offload some of those contracts.
Well, I just like the idea of being able to have someone like Derek Fisher, who, as you said, is very comfortable in the triangle. They brought in Rams to be able to work with him as well. And if Melo's willing to be, an acceptable part of it, which it sounds like he is, it sounds like Phil Jackson has him on board, that's fine. I do worry about a lot of the money, and particularly with Amari Stoudemire. I don't know if he's necessarily the best fit for that system, but as you said, Calderon's a nice fit there as well. I'd like to see what they end up doing at the 5 spot. Right now, I think Cole Aldrich is still on the roster. They got rid of Tyson Chandler. So they do have some fixes over there. One thing that I found interesting was something that Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted earlier today. And he basically said that one likely option for Carmelo, from a business perspective, is to take the money now, and then a couple years later, if it's not working out, you can always figure out a different destination. But then he's already under contract.
It could very well be a sign and trade. They get him under the contract, and then perhaps he puts a situation where they're just going to move him to get better assets or a longer-term plan for the Knicks. So yeah, I think it does give him that flexibility now when he has the money. And again, if you're a cynic, then you might look at him as just damaging another team, tying them up again with a long-term contract that is going to make it prohibitive to get better.
I think it'll be interesting to see ultimately how everything plays out for Carmelo. I think he's going to sign that long-term deal. New York's going to want to at least get the 2-3 remaining really good years out of him. If they feel the need to ship him a little bit later on, they can do so as well.
By the way, really quickly, I think that he'll be awesome in the triangle. Like you said, I think he can fit in there and to get the kind of action that he's best at with posting up, coming around down screens, getting motion. If they can get him to move the ball, I think he can be devastating.
I think you're right. I think the versatility for sure in the triangle is there, and it's nice to be able to have a more connected offensive system in New York after what we saw with D'Antoni and then Woodson. Just doesn't seem like there was a whole lot of flow to there as well. Topic number 2 today, Coach, is something that I think a lot of us have been talking about, and that's sort of the impact of what happens if LeBron chooses Cleveland. Now, I think it's become very apparent that there's 2 teams in the mix. Talked to a lot of teams. The agent spoke with a lot of different teams, but it's going to be Cleveland in Miami. And what I find interesting now is that Cleveland's really going all in. They cleared out a bunch of space today with $9.5 million, got rid of Jarrett Jack, sent him out, Tyler Zeller, so on and so forth. But now Wojo's reporting that they may try and swing a deal with Kevin Love, contingent on the team getting LeBron. Can you imagine Kyrie Irving, LeBron, Kevin Love? And you would run away with the East.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no question that would have to be a prohibitive favorite in the East, and I would, that's what made it sense to me as soon as I saw that. Because right now, LeBron going with all those young guys doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all.
Correct.
But here's the thing: I think that Cleveland has already won. They've won because they're in the conversation. When maybe a year ago you would have thought there's no way that LeBron would ever even consider going back. This is a really important thing for them, where at least they're on the map and they're being considered. So you can kind of count that either way.
No question. And then they have the opportunity, if they wanted to try and swing a deal for Love, you go ahead and you trade Wiggins, who I think is going to be a really nice NBA player. Factor in with maybe Tristan Thompson to try and get another big over in Minnesota. Anthony Bennett certainly was a total disappointment last year, but I think the jury's not out on him yet. I mean, I can't think of a scenario for Cleveland to say, well, there's nobody on this team with the exception of maybe Irving that we wouldn't give up to try and make Kevin Love happen, even if it's not a guaranteed thing that he sticks around.
Absolutely. In a heartbeat, they should trade Andrew Wiggins if they can get Kevin Love, and then LeBron James coming as well, obviously. But even if it's just Kevin Love, that's a serious upgrade in the East that makes them very legitimate as it is. Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, you know, Uncle Drew and, well, whatever he was on the commercial, that's a great pairing as it is. So without a question, I don't think that Andrew Wiggins is going to develop for a couple more years anyway. And if they want to win now, that's the move they have to make.
I guess the ultimate question of gun to your head, is it Cleveland or is it Miami for LeBron?
It's amazing. And by the way, now Bosh is injected into this too, because if Bosh wants to go and take that money, which he probably should, by the way, in Houston, then LeBron is gone. So it's kind of interesting that in some weird way, Bosh could actually hold the key to all of this.
I was actually stunned, by the way, that Bosh didn't take that money, because he's not going to get that type of money to go back to Miami. But that was a max deal and a really good fit, I thought, in Houston.
Wait, did you hear that he definitively turned it down?
I had heard that, well, at least I had heard that it was getting close to him not, well, I don't know if he necessarily turned it down, but what I had heard was that he certainly wasn't accepting it as of yet.
Right. I mean, I think they're all talking to each other and trying to figure it out. So I think that's still on the table. And, man, that's a big table to consider.
Well, if he does turn it down, I think that's not necessarily the smartest thing in the world for Chris Bosh. I still think LeBron ends up in Miami, but Cleveland continues to inch closer and closer. I'm not going to go with my gut or say it's 85% sure, because, frankly, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Absolutely. Well, great stuff here. We'll keep our eye on it and get back to you when we get some more definitive news. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? I'm in.